Hello again. Now this week I'm going to talk about punctuation, or at least one particular piece of punctuation. Generally in cryptic crosswords you can ignore commas, hyphens, they don't tend to do a great deal. Apostrophes now and again will indicate a certain type of speech, I'll deal with that another time. Exclamation marks sometimes can mean an expression of surprise like wow or oh or gosh or something in an answer, but you won't ever put the exclamation mark in the actual grid. The one that really does cause a few problems is the question mark. And I've written all these out because I tried it without writing them out and I made a terrible mess. But the question mark does a couple of things in general. It's a good indication that part of the clue won't break down. And its two main implications are either that the definition is a bit abstract, a bit figurative, or it's a kind of whole thing in charades. And in that instance, it's usually a really terrible joke or a really bad pun. So the question mark is essentially like your dad walking into the room and going, "I'll tell you what, you'll like this." You won't. You're going to wince. There's probably a really bad joke coming. So we'll deal with the first example. Now this, a large fellow blundering into conflict, one ignored at party, question mark, 10 letters. Large fellow blundering into conflict, one ignored at party, question mark. If the question mark wasn't there, you might start looking at one ignored, meaning taking out an I from something. Party is often do. Do is very useful, so you could take 2 letters from that. But because of the question mark, you're starting to think that could well be the definition part. This one is going to break down into 2 parts. One ignored at party then becomes a possible definition, but you know it's going to be a little bit loose. So you start looking around at the other end. Large is often L, from clothing sizes, various things like that. Fellow blundering is an anagram of fellow, and they're all going into conflict. Conflict is war. So you have conflict, war around the outside, large and fellow. Because of the order this is written in, you know that the L goes there from large. Fellow then blunders, and you get wallflower, which is one ignored at party, although arguably a wallflower is ignoring everyone else. You know, there's a vagueness in the definition because of the question mark, but the clue still breaks down roughly into a definition section and a wordplay section. I rushed through that example because these two are much more the problem with question marks. That you could probably almost do if the question mark wasn't there. It wouldn't make a great deal of difference. This is a bit trickier. As one struggling with computer might be resigned to doing, question mark. 63422. As one struggling with computer might be resigned to doing. Now you've got a lot of words going on here, and as soon as you see a lot of words like that, you're thinking that because of the question mark again, this might be one of the whole thing clues. So you don't go breaking this down into component parts and taking letters from here and letters from there. This question mark means this is a terrible joke, which will sort of give you the answer if you just unfocus your mind, try and get the rhythm of the words and see how it goes. Usually these multi-word ones, there's nothing particularly special about them. They're longer, but they can work as perfectly normal clues. They break down in normal ways, they have definition and wordplay. It's the question mark that changes the game. In this instance, I'm just going to tailor the answer because the best way to go about it is to get the pattern of the words in your head. In this particular instance, this is quite useful, computer, because computers are often referenced by it, i.e. IT. So you're thinking one of those 2-letter words could be it, IT, because of the word computer. And the answer turns out to be making the best of it. One struggling with computer is making the best of it, IT. You see, it's just a terrible joke. And that is what the question mark is doing in that instance. And it's also indicating that the clue isn't breaking down. So you don't have to start taking letters from here and there. It's more common with these multi-word answers. It's more common to see a question mark and to have to treat the whole thing as a single sort of lateral leap. So there's another one. This is really, really poor, and I wrote this one, so I totally apologise. That's actually from today's Everyman Observer. Really good place to start with crosswords, as I often say. This one I apologise for completely. Say, is that a settlement of exhausted singers? Small settlement, sorry. Say, is that a small settlement of exhausted singers? Question mark. Once again, the question mark changes everything. 354. So you know this is a terrible joke, you know it's probably going to affect the whole thing. The word say over here usually would be a part of wordplay. It would be uttered or spoke or something. It could substitute, it could be a sounds like. In this instance, it's just meant to be answered as a whole question with the answer. So, say, is that a small settlement of exhausted singers? Yes, it's one horse town, because they've been singing a lot and they are hoarse. I did write it, but I have seen very, very similar things in crosswords before. So yes, one horse town, a small settlement, exhausted singers, horse with an A, horse without an A. It's poor. I'm not even sure it's entirely valid, but it gets you the idea that when you see these question marks and these multi-word clues, you just have to kind of feel your way into it, and when you get it, you'll know you've got it because you'll go, oh God, and generally wince a bit, realise there's a terrible joke at hand. But yes, I'll deal with a lot of other punctuation at another time, but generally this question mark means you're either not breaking down a part of the clue, the definition is a bit loose, or you're looking at a whole thing, and that's more common with the multi-word ones, a whole thing, it doesn't break down at all, and you just have to make a lateral leap from the vague subject of the clue to the phrase in the answer. And they will always be common phrases that you know, so it will be making the best of it or take a load off one's mind and things like that. So they will be common phrases that you know, and they will have some kind of thematic link to the clue, but often it won't break down in a traditional crossword sense. So they are a little bit of more of an art than a science. So yes, generally I would say fear the question mark and happy solving.